Here's the key question that you need to ask yourself. If this partnership with this brand were on the front page of a major publication tomorrow, including your name and your photo, how would that make you feel? Would you be proud? Would you be neutral? Would you be defensive? Would you be embarrassed? That's the front page test, and it rarely lies. Now let's address the question that's always gives me the biggest clue. And you might be thinking, can I do this without having my name attached? Kind of behind the scenes for a brand. And let me say that I have done some consulting behind the scenes and also some ghostwriting, but that wasn't because I was embarrassed to align with the brand. It was because the brand wanted to seem as if the information came from them. And I was certainly okay with that, especially because these partnerships were financially rewarding and I wasn't hiding. I was just doing some work for them to help them. That was what they hired me for. But if you feel like you need to hide, that's a message to you, because when we're aligned, we wouldn't need to hide. When we're conflicted, we look for anonymity, and anonymity usually is a sign that something needs a deeper look. Well, hey there. Welcome to Media Savvy, the podcast that gives you a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to get noticed by media and become the go-to expert that they keep coming back to. I'll be sitting down with successful writers, producers, and entrepreneurs to learn the tools and tactics they use to build their reputation and in turn boost their business. I'm your host, Bonnie Taub-Dix, and I've been working with top-tier media outlets for more than 30 years, anywhere from traditional print publications to online and social platforms. And I'm sharing my nutrition guidance without gimmicks. But you don't have to be a dietitian for this podcast to speak to you. Through my one-to-one conversations, you'll learn how to build a strategy to get your name in the news and establish yourself as an authority in your field, no matter what the industry. With Media Savvy, I'm on a mission to inspire, motivate, and empower you to have the confidence and tools you need to shine in the spotlight. Are you ready? Let's get Media Savvy. Well, hey there, Media Savvy friends. I am so happy to see you here, or at least know that you're here. My name is Bonnie Taub-Dix, and I am the host of the Media Savvy podcast. And today we are talking about a topic that is super serious, and it is about integrity. And I want to talk about this because recently a media training client came to me and she had a dilemma. She wasn't sure if she should work with a brand or not, and it was a great brand opportunity. So I wanted to talk to you about this because I think that this is something that if you haven't faced it yet, it's something that you might be facing, especially if you plan on working with brands. So I'm just curious, have you ever gotten a brand offer that should have felt exciting, but instead you felt kind of an internal wobble? Not panic, not worry, just kind of off. And that tiny hesitation, that quiet voice that was saying, wait a second. Well, today we're going to talk about that feeling because sometimes the real question isn't, is this a good opportunity for me? It's, am I selling out or am I strategizing? And if you're stepping into media and you're building visibility, if brands are starting to reach out to you or you want brands to reach out to you, then this conversation really matters. And this is about money versus morals, the brand deal dilemma. So let's start with something important. Food is not immoral. Meat is not good or evil. Coconut oil is not good or evil. Cheese is not good or evil. I happen to think it's really good, but anyway, not good or evil. But your positioning, well, then that's strategic. And media amplifies everything. One of the goals of this podcast is to help dietitians and healthcare professionals land brand deals that make them feel good professionally, personally, and of course, financially. So when you say yes to a brand, you're not just creating a recipe or a post. You're attaching your credibility, your name, and your face to that product. And here's where the wobble comes in. You want to align with the brand that makes you feel good. But let me give you an example of what we're going to be talking about. So the client that I was talking about that recently came to me landed a brand partnership, and it was something that we had actively been working together to help her connect with brands. And this wasn't random. We had worked on positioning, refining her pitch, clarifying her messaging, and then an offer came in. 3 months to work together with this brand, multiple recipes, social media activations, blog features, even consulting on their marketing material. I mean, this would be a contract that would be music to my ears. And it makes you sit back and think, okay, this is just what I've been building towards. This is what I've been waiting for. And yet, a few days later, she called me and her tone was completely different. You know that quieter voice people use when they're trying to sort something out in real time? She said, I should be excited about this, but I'm struggling with the moral side of this. And I paused. Not because I was worried, but because that pause told me she really cared about her integrity. And I needed to put myself in her position to think about how I would feel in that position, not just thinking about the money she would make or potentially being magnetic and going to another brand. What makes this especially interesting as dietitians, particularly those who are generalists and not niching down into one rigid philosophy, is that we often teach that all foods can fit. We talk about context. We talk about moderation. We talk about medical needs and personal preferences. We don't label foods as good and bad. So when a brand offer comes in for something that isn't exactly the poster child for a health food store, it creates tension in us or gives us pause. Not because it's forbidden, but because now your name and your face and your reputation is attached to this brand or to this product. So I told her something that reframed the entire conversation. This isn't about morals, as I said before. It's about alignment. Morals suggest right and wrong. Alignment asks whether you're saying something publicly matches what you're doing professionally, and perhaps even personally. Whether your messaging, your partnerships, and your positioning all move in that same direction. That's the real conversation. So let's break this down with some real examples so you know what I'm talking about. If you were publicly vegan and your entire brand was built around plant-only eating and reducing animal agriculture, should you partner with a cheese brand? Probably not. Not because there's anything wrong with cheese, as I said before, but because it contradicts your stated identity. Now, a different scenario. If you personally don't eat a lot of meat, but you educate about flexibility, protein variety, iron intake, and balancing eating, could you work with a cattle association? Probably. Is your personal preference the same as your professional messaging? Well, that's the distinction. And then there are the hard boundaries. If you're kosher, for example, and someone asks you to promote bacon, that's not a gray zone to me. That's a no. That's not strategy. That's a violation of something that you deeply believe in and follow. But most offers are not that black and white. Most of them live in the gray zone. And the gray zone is where professionals are built. I want to say that one again. The gray zone is where professionals are built. That's what I call the brand deal that makes you hesitate. It's not the obvious no. It's not the obvious yes, but it's the one that makes you pause. And listen carefully, because the pause is not a weakness. It's not at all. It's discernment. It's the ability to use your good judgment. So now let's add another layer. Sometimes the product isn't the star of the health food store. It's not kale, it's not lentils, but it might be butter, or it might be a cookie brand, or it might be a coconut oil. And here's what I ask myself if I'm considering working with a brand like these. Is it something that I actually use, even if I use it only on occasion? Is it something that I enjoy? Is it something that I could stand behind if it's used in moderation? Is it something that I would feed to my family? If those questions could be answered with a resounding yes, well, then I don't really have a problem with representing that brand. Because I don't teach perfection. I teach balance. Moderation and joy are part of credibility too. If we only represent superfoods, then we're creating a fantasy. That's not the way that people eat all the time. And I like to talk to people who need my help about how to eat in general, not just on a certain occasion. Because real life might include some butter on your toast, whole grain toast at that, but it might include some butter on your toast or whipped cream on a dessert that you share with your friends. And I would much rather model responsibly an inclusion than a rigid exclusion. So now let's talk about strategy. You do not have to promote a product irresponsibly. You could shape the messaging, and this is where your media expertise will shine. Let's say a brand reaches out and the recipe calls for a cup of coconut oil. And you're thinking, whoa, that is a lot of saturated fat. Well, you don't have to say no immediately. You could renegotiate the recipe. And you could say, well, if we used a quarter of a cup of coconut oil and the rest in avocado oil or light olive oil, what about that? Now you're diluting down the saturated fat. You're improving the fatty acid profile of the recipe, but you're still honoring the ingredient. It's still included in your recipe. But while you're shaping it in a way that reflects your values. This is not selling out. That's influencing from within. And sometimes that consulting role, which is helping to shape marketing language for the brand, is even more powerful than the recipe itself. Because you're improving the messaging before it even goes out into the world. That's media maturity. That, my friends, is being media savvy. And speaking of media savvy, if this is your first time that you're listening to the show, I hope that you'll hit the subscribe button, and even more, I hope that you'll let me know how you feel, whether it's in a review or send me an email. My email address is mediasavvy, that's savvy with 2 V's, btd@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. One way or another, I would love to hear from you. And if you're tuning in regularly, well, I hope you already subscribed to the show because you'll love what's coming up next. Okay, getting back to our topic. Here's the key question that you need to ask yourself. If this partnership with this brand were on the front page of a major publication tomorrow, including your name and your photo, how would that make you feel? Would you be proud? Would you be neutral? Would you be defensive? Would you be embarrassed? That's the front page test, and it rarely lies. Now let's address the question that's always gives me the biggest clue. And you might be thinking, can I do this without having my name attached? You know, kind of behind the scenes for a brand. And let me say that I have done some consulting behind the scenes and also some ghostwriting. But that wasn't because I was embarrassed to align with the brand. It was because the brand wanted to seem as if the information came from them. And I was certainly okay with that, especially because these partnerships were financially rewarding and I wasn't hiding. I was just doing some work for them to help them. That was what they hired me for. But if you feel like you need to hide, that's a message to you. Because when we're aligned, we wouldn't need to hide. When we're conflicted, we look for anonymity. And anonymity usually is a sign that something needs a deeper look. So where the money versus morals becomes real, yeah, that's this. Because money is temporary. Your reputation is cumulative. Journalists Google you. Brands Google you. Your audience watches patterns. Your partnerships shape your trajectory. If you say yes to everything early, especially products that you wouldn't use yourself, you become the person who promotes everything and your work gets diluted. But if you're selective, thoughtful, strategic, you become trusted, and trust compounds and grows. So before you say yes to that brand, ask yourself, does this contradict my core beliefs? Would my audience feel surprised to see me representing this brand? Can I shape the content to bring clarity? Would I explain this confidently on national TV? Can I help my audience understand how to use this product responsibly? Am I selling out? Or am I strategically expanding? There's a big difference. Because sometimes the right answer isn't automatically no. Sometimes it's adjust, it's negotiate, it's reframe the messaging so it reflects your voice. It's healthify a recipe so it aligns with your standards. It's finding a way to bring moderation and joy into the conversation instead of extremes. And sometimes after you've walked through all of that, the answer really might be, no, thank you. So nice to connect with you, but I think I'm going to have to take a pass this time. A clear, clean, confident, no thank you. And that could be just as powerful as saying yes. So if you're feeling that internal wobble right now, don't panic, pause. Not because you're unsure, but because you're building something that is lasting. This isn't just about one brand deal. It's about protecting your credibility in brand partnerships. Because when your integrity and your income are negotiating with each other, your strategy should be what leads. And when you're getting that balance right, you don't need to hide. You'll feel steady, clear, aligned, and you'll continue to look mighty media savvy as you do today. Whew. Glad I got that out. That really means a lot to me, and I hope it means a lot to you. So thank you for tuning in. As always, I love reading your comments, so please keep them coming. Until next time, I hope you're really out there getting your messages out, if not thinking about getting your messages out, and that you're ready to take the next step. So thanks again for tuning in today. Bye.